Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Star Citizen Live. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee, and this week's show is a special pre-tape show for our friends in Xi'an, China. As we do at this time of year, they have this big, giant, mega event with something like 2,000 people. I don't know. I've never been invited. But a big event, they submit questions, we go through questions, we pick the ones that we can address on the show. This year, we opened a thread up on Spectrum to the rest of the community to integrate their questions in, so we get questions from all around the world. This is our typical Fleet Week show, where we take questions all about spaceships and spaceship gameplay and spaceship design and spaceship balancing, and why haven't you made my spaceship the way that I want you to make my spaceship? Why? Why didn't you make my spaceship the way I wanted you to?
Don't want to.
Fair enough. So we're gonna dive into the questions right now. These were culled from both the list from our friends in China and from Spectrum. And right off the bat, we should introduce people. John, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
My name is John Crew. I'm the vehicle director here at CIG, and I look after all the vehicle teams, primarily the content ones.
Okay. Torsten, with a new title. Tell everybody who you are.
Ni hao, I'm Torsten, Assistant Design Director at this point. And I look after still the system design team, tech design team, AI design team, so a bit more responsibility at this point.
And that's the gameplay that
Everything.
sits at the center of the game.
Correct, yes.
Yeah. And Rich, certainly, welcome back. We had some confusion about how you got here before the showtime.
So,
Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
So I'm Richard. I'm the lead designer with the vehicle experience team. So we look after kind of the vehicles, vehicle balance, vehicle gameplay, and work very closely with Austin on just how the vehicles play in the game, basically.
So you got the people who make the ships, the people who make the game, the people who help the ships interact with the game, and somewhere in between all three, usually we can find an answer to one of these questions. So right off the bat, in no particular order, this show will probably be a little bit longer than normal, and certainly not better for being pre-taped. I think we've proven that already. We want high difficulty PvE content where players can team up for extended sessions. How will this be expanded going forward? Well, this seems like a very timely question. We've got the upcoming tactical strike groups. Talk to us about TSG.
Well, TSG will be introducing the need for different ships and for multiple players playing together, working together, and basically coordinating themselves and going in with like a big group to resolve the mission. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, we have a lot of ships in the game, and they all have very different roles. And TSG finally sort of brings together the requirements for person A in ship archetype 1, person B in ship archetype 2, and they can work together to complete the mission. Because TSG is not like do one thing, mission done. It's a layered, staggered, sequential series of events that one ship is not. You don't need one ship to do it. You need multiple types. So I think it's
using different types of gameplay, different objectives. We've had this concept. The PO's been around since 2015. That we're building this spaceship MMO where you need to bring together fighters and repair ships and capital ships and bombers and stuff like this, and bring them together for a coordinated attack. We've had this promise for a while, but a lot of our content, and I don't think I'm telling anything anybody doesn't know, a lot of our content tends to be very FPS focused. For this reason or that, as systems are being developed, as flight models are being tuned and retuned and stuff like that. Now, this is the first major step forward. We're not going to hit everything we want to do in this first thing, but TSG represents this first major step forward at these coordinated, extended PvE spaceship experiences for the game, and there's literally no content drop that I've been more excited about, which is why it was the centerpiece for CitizenCon Direct last year, to see it finally arriving here at May and tied in with a big fighting spaceship promotion alongside. I wish we could take credit for it. That was entirely happenstance. It's really nice. So it's a really exciting time for Star Citizen, and by the time this airs, people will have been playing it in PTU and stuff, and hope they're seeing the amazing work the team have been doing. With that, let's get to the majority of questions for a show like this, which is, why haven't you made my ship the way that you want me to make it? Comparing the RSI Perseus's in-game appearance against, I really didn't time that, against its original concept art, the original concept had a much cleaner look, while the flyable version features many irregular and unconventional design elements. How did the team envision this design evolution as you move towards production?
Okay, so part of that is just how things work during development. A lot of the older ships, so Polaris and Perseus, for example, the actual concepts of them are in 3D, but they're very low detail 3D, and then they have all the details painted over it in 2D in Photoshop or whatever. So when you actually come to put into production, you don't have any of that detail. You put the corridor pieces in, and they are just flat sections. And as any artist will tell you, that's not good looking. So you add these details, and the Perseus built on the lessons we learned from the Polaris, which we talked about many times before. We went with a sort of brutalist style approach to it, which we liked, lots of people didn't like. So we wanted to sort of course correct a bit with the RSI style. So the Perseus are a lot more detailed in those corridors, and you'll see more of that evolving in with the Galaxy, although toned down a little because it's not military, it's civilian. So things that were amped up have been toned back down again for the Galaxy, but it's all built from that same kit style. And you sort of need that level of detail to make it look good. You can't just have flat walls that are the RSI trapezoidal shape. It doesn't work. So it's sort of as you're in there, you need to build and add layers whilst being mindful that it's not, here's this wall section that I've made as an artist, and I want it to be the best wall section I've ever made in my life, and it's going to look really great on my portfolio, and then it's repeated 30 times down the corridor. It just overloads everyone's brains and eyes. So it's sort of, you have that, and then you break it up with lower detail bits just to give eye relief.
Yeah. At scale, you need more irregularity.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the repetition becomes far more in your face.
When you have some of those corridors, it's less so the Perseus, but still you have corridor sections that are 5-6 segments repeated. You need something irregular to break that up. Otherwise, it just looks copy paste all the way down.
There's also something to be said about new people who have joined the project since a ship was concepted. People come to the project and they come with new talents, new skills, new experiences. Technology improves from the time when something was concepted. And the idea that you just come in and just have to Control-C, Control-V something that was designed years ago, it's uninteresting to everybody. It's like we've all learned so much. We've all gained so much experience. Of course, we're going to apply that, to these ships as we build them, and that means changes will occur. And I think anybody, if I'm allowed to have an opinion, I have said this often, the ships today that are made today are better than the ships that were made last year, are better than the ships that were made the year before that. So yes, they may change so much, but I almost universally for the better. It's one of the few things I'll say are you can kind of just draw a line across. The ships get better every year. So that's a testament to, well, not you, John, but the people who are on your team.
The people that do the work.
Light fighters, medium fighters, and heavy fighters currently feel like their roles overlap and their counter relationships are unclear. Will there be a rework to better differentiate them?
Short answer to that is yes. But the long answer is, they are relatively close. So our light fighters are actually pretty heavy and pretty big, themselves. So it's no surprise that that kind of range of ships, it does blur the lines. But we've been putting a lot of work, over the past 12 months on the new flight model, and we're really working on how we make these ships interact with each other in different ways. So there's different advantages and different weaknesses in each archetype. Also, been working with Austin on the weapon balance and the armor changes, and that's going to really, that's already started to have an impact on how these ships interact as well.
Yeah, actually, it's something that we discussed a lot lately in the vehicle leadership meeting that we all have, where so we need to treat fighters more as its own bucket, but in that bucket, we also need to treat the fighters differently, so that there is a huge, a clear identity between the fighters. And this is something that we have been working out. The new flight model that Rich and his team is working on is also moving us into that direction, that there's a better distinction between the fighters. But something that also came out from the feedback that we received with all the armor rework that we have been doing is because we have right now in the game, in 4.7, in 4.8, hopefully not anymore, this hard gap between heavy fighters and medium fighters and light fighters. So there's this, even a stop gap between medium fighters and heavy fighters. So we decided on that doesn't paint the picture of fighters, because fighters have to fight each other rather than there's one sitting outside that is immune to light fighters. So one consequence of us discussing in there was also bringing that closer together, but still maintaining perceived differences between these fighters. So there's still a meaningful choice that then also plays into all the content that we are doing now for spaceships, where you better bring a heavy fighter, but there are also opportunities for the light fighter.
Yeah, it's something we talked about before as well that I want to reiterate, is that you don't do 20 hours of light fighter. I've done light fighter now, so now I'm going to upgrade my role or career into medium fighters and then heavy fighters. They're tools for different jobs. They're not linear power upgrades. You can obviously upgrade, but it's a choice of how your gameplay is to go from light to medium. You could stay a light fighter for all your game time if you want and have a perfectly great time. You don't need to go up the chain if you don't want to. It just gives you different opportunities and different experiences.
Yeah, I think there was this big expectation when the F8C came out that it was just going to be the the I win button, everything, and it's not. It's not intended to be.
Yeah, that's it's something that we have been trying for ages already. That we want to have each category has its own purpose. Sometimes we are doing we hit we hit it, and it's actually working out the way that we intended. But sometimes we have to do slight adjustments, and we are right now in the adjustment phase, especially for the fighter. And they have a focus right now, especially in the new flight model testing. We focus very hard on the fighter, that they feel great, that they feel different. And I'm actually looking forward to the future for fighters in our game, because I think we are on a good way there. We just need more testing and
So I have to ask this. This is my own follow-up here. Every time we bring up the new flight model, this is starting to feel after many years now like the Benny Hill song starts to play. When we talk about this new flight model is always right around the corner. It's always, well, we did that, and then it got us part of it, but then we learned more. That's part of having a testing environment in the middle of your development. We don't have to do it all in one. We can put a part of it out, test it, and go, oh, okay, well, that's going to send us in a different direction. But constantly being sent in different directions, constantly having this conversation about this, and it can start to sound like noise as it covers years. I'm not going to ask when. We're not talking about when. We know that most of this work is happening in Squadron and stuff like this. I'm going to ask you how you feel about the flight model right now. Like you're in there, you're playing it. There's a question in here later about whether CIG staff play Star Citizen. You guys are playing it. You guys are working with it. You have to in order to test it. It's in massive testing with Michael Smith's team and that's what it is. How is that going? How are you feeling about it?
So in the current game, I think we've got a really good flight model, but it's lacking some of the levers that we want to pull to make the ships feel different. To do the light fighter to heavy fighter, but also not just fighters, to make our large ships feel like massive ships that you're really pulling through, to kind of turn and move the ships around. So, I do think our current flight models are really good, and it's a really good testament to the team. But we've learnt so much since we've introduced it. But I would see the new flight model as not just how the ships fly, but it's the overall flight experience that's going to kind of change drastically. So we aren't going to rush out there and just put out a piece of the new flight model and not have the rest. So we're kind of looking at this as soon as you take off in your ship, that is the flight model starting, and then you go all like the way to the full new kind of quantum experience, and that's going to be the new flight experience really. So it's not just a flight model and how the ship's flight's going to change. It's the entire flight experience is going to come as like one kind of package.
And even that is just an ingredient, right? Because it's also like the bullet speeds that will change, or the weapon behavior. Let's even describe it more broadly, is what adds a lot to the experience as well there. And there were again a lot of discussions just last couple of weeks around what we can do to actually improve the feel, because CR wants this very cinematic combat that we are now getting closer and closer to, and that's the reason. Like, I would even describe this as our red line in our iteration over all the flight experience as flight combat and flight changes that we have been doing over the years. It's like we always try to aim what CR was envisioning, and there were always like some information that we get additionally, and then we could improve a bit more on what we actually wanted to achieve. And I think we are now getting close to like where we would get the CR seal of approval here. And especially like we did some tests, was it last week, with some like weapon changes that will not make it the way that we tested it in the game, because we are not ready for that yet, but we will do a step in between for that. That is increasing the ranges for weapons and slowing down the bullet speed. It gives already a more cinematic approach to all the battle, or all the fights, and it helps also tremendously with having, like, even though with lower speeds, it might sound a bit contradicting, but actually with lower speeds you have a more agile combat, because we have to bring closer together. You are able to dodge bullets more than you are previously, so there will be some, or the goal for these changes is to have an agile combat in a closer range, which is exactly what CR wants for this game. And then with all the flight changes that we are working on, we are moving slowly into that direction. And the reason why we have to move slowly, and it's not a negative thing, is it's something that we learned last year when we did all the changes at once for engineering gameplay in a one PTU cycle, and we learned, no, that was a bit too much. So what we are doing right now is we do these increments now to have like, I think we talked about that in some of the other SCRs, we have a very focused view on what we change, and we can iterate or we gather data untinted from all the rest that we did. So we know exactly when we put something out, okay, all the feedback that we receive is around that topic. For the next patch it will be, so we did some armor adjustment based on the feedback on the armor release in the last patch, because we only did release the armor changes. In 4.8 we will do some bullet speed changes, bullet range changes, so we will get feedback on that, and then we can iterate over that, and in the next patch there might be something new for flight behavior, combat behavior.
Yeah, they're all, I think it's always around the corner problem is for Star Citizen, it's all interconnected. Like, if you change flight speeds, you have to change projectile speeds, lifetimes, shields, like it all. And there's a lot of ships and there's a lot of content, and you have the PvE side, so you've got to do all the AI side, as well as coping with the player side, which a lot of this work was done in Squadron a long time ago. And compared to, this is Star Citizen Live, not Squadron Live, it's a very constrained scenario set. Like, we know exactly what the player's going to be doing or should be doing against who in what formation, and you can quickly iterate there. But when it comes to bringing that over to Squadron, bring it over to Star Citizen, you're 10, 50, 100 timesing the amount of work there to get that same experience at a larger scale. So it plays really nicely. Everything gels together really well, but we can't just like piecemeal parts out without some big drops like we did with engineering, where it was too much, and then the feedback just goes everywhere, and it's disjointed, so it takes a while to roll that out.
All right. So on some Origin ships, we can see landing gear with wheels. I just went into my Count Disco there. Blah. Wheels. Yeah, see landing gear with wheels. If the new flight model is implemented in the future and atmospheric flight becomes a fully realized option, would there be any possibility of switching to wheeled landing gear or even cooler ground effect hover landing systems?
The wheel side is something we want to do. It's not connected to new flight model in any way. It would be different programmers doing that. But yes, we have a lot of Origin ships. I think most of them have wheels, as well as some other manufacturers. And in fact, Chris was talking to me about this very subject. Maybe he put this question in there about when can we get proper steering wheels and landing wheels on the Origin ships.
Will there be more alien ships with different roles? Currently, most alien ships are dedicated combat types.
Yes, so this starts with the Raylan Alien Week in June. And I think we will see a couple more this year that are alien ships and not combat.
Torpedoes and missiles. I just leave it there. Torpedoes and missiles. Go, guys. Torpedoes and missiles sometimes have difficulty hitting targets. Their purpose remains unclear. I think their purpose is clear. I think whether they achieve it is unclear. And the reliability is very worrying. Will there be improvements?
So we have a big kind of missile rework planned at the moment, where the core aspect of what's wrong with missiles right now is just it's really hard to predict where they're going to land because they're so quick. So we've got problems with networking. The missiles are very small and agile, like they're way more agile than the ships. So the inaccuracies you see sometimes it's just how they are predicted to hit at the moment. And that prediction isn't hitting the mark all the time. But also it's to do with countermeasures as well. So I would say we've got a linear relationship right now, which is you do a countermeasure and the missile misses, right? But that's not the intended really goal of how the missiles work. We want more kind of clear kind of readability of where the missile's coming from. Because at the moment, if you've got a missile coming at you and you do a countermeasure and you get hit, it's bad. And you don't know where it's coming from. So we want a much more kind of clear kind of readability of where the missile's coming from. But it means we've got to change the flight of the kind of missiles themselves, because the moment the missiles fly in a kind of fully decoupled way where they can change direction very, very quickly at the last minute as well. So again, it's that kind of predictability at the end where they do suddenly go like this to you. But we want that to be much more predictable. So, we want to slow them down a little bit so, you can actually evade them. But also that slowing down makes it easy to predict where they're going to hit as well. And then we've got systems, we want, we kind of want to do stealth gameplay. So, you can do things on your ship yourself to make you less susceptible to missiles, but we need all these systems to come together, as one big package of how kind of missiles work. But that's where kind of Thorsten comes in as well.
Yeah, actually we did some steps already to improve the missile gameplay. So not on the missiles themselves, there are still, there are issues that are even quite high on our immediate fix list for that. We don't have a feedback right now, visual feedback for that the target lock is completely done. So this definitely needs fixing. So we already started working on the UI improvements. There are some, there are reasons why it's not in yet. So we are still actively working on that to getting all the changes across. But at least it will help for the initial missile gameplay that we currently have in the game. As Rich already said, the speeds of them are now with the updated bullet speeds for the normal weapons. They also unproportional again. So that means that this is definitely something we need to tackle afterwards. And for the stealth gameplay, actually, we did some changes already around that. So engineering gameplay influences the EM signatures. IR signatures are also like driven by the cooler functionality. So we already have player decisions impact the signatures. Also with actually a shout out to Michael Smith there. It's basically his doing that we have the cross-section is only detectable now by active ping. So it's actually something that was brought up in our vehicle leadership meeting, and we just acted on it because it works out quite well. Has the downside though that the cross-section missiles now need an active ping, and there's also like some visual indicators missing. So we have a list of things we need to improve, even for the missile gameplay that we currently have in the game. But we also are very aware that the missile gameplay is the gameplay that we can improve a bit more even after these quality of life changes. Because we have dedicated missile bolts, we have dedicated ships with a lot of missiles on them, and we have to make it fun for missiles. It needs to be an exciting gameplay, and right now it's more like, and I'm very sorry to be that honest, but it's more like a side thing to do. The benefit though, and I have to advertise it, is missiles ignore the armor checks because they do so much damage. So if you have a small ship and you want to crack the armor, use a missile.
It seems like one of the more difficult tasks, because if you have a ship with missiles, you want them to be amazing, you want them to be effective, you want them to be devastating, because they cost a lot to reload. CR is always on about you shouldn't be able to, replacing a missile or a giant S7 torpedo should cost you, a lot, just like it does in the world. So if it costs you a lot, they have to be effective. But on the flip side, if you're on the other side of that missile or a torpedo, you need to have options to defend yourself, to survive and whatnot. And it's no matter what you do, somebody is going to be like, yes, that's great. And somebody's going to be like, that is the worst change ever. Because there's no, like, it's very hard to find a middle ground there, because if you get killed by a missile, missiles are terrible. I should have had more things to do. There are a couple questions in here. We've sort of hit all of them, so I'm not going to ask them. Where there's no lead pips on shooting down torpedoes and stuff. We wanted to make it easier to shoot down the torpedoes. But if you do that, then torpedoes become less effective. So this constant give and take is just.
Yeah, but even with the torpedoes, it's like right now with the lead pips, it's basically impossible because they are traveling so fast. So we have to reduce the speed again so that they feel also correct for a torpedo, because a torpedo should not target a small fighter, because they are meant to.
Everything's interconnected.
Yes.
If you mess with one thing,
there's got to always be this element of chance, like that you can't make it so that you can always shoot them down.
Yeah.
Because then they were ineffective, and you can't make it so that they always hit and destroy their target. Otherwise, so there's always got to be this gray area of chance.
Yeah, and it's a really fine balance, because like it's got to make sense for both parties that what happened. If it hit or miss, it's got to make sense to both people that are on either side of it, which is a really difficult thing, because it's a really hard thing to communicate. Because in real life, if you've got a missile coming at you, you have one option: press the button and go, evade. But if you get hit by a missile in real life, that's it. You're gonna go down, right? So. It's just a question of balance, and it is really fine tuning, because it requires so many systems to come together. It isn't just a flight; it's the emissions and everything else. So it's just it's a really fine balance, which we get right sometimes and we get wrongs other times.
But overall, I would really say, and it feels like I'm repeating myself, with with the decision that we do smaller changes continuously, though, we are now way better suited for where we want to go, in comparison to where we threw in a lot of changes all at once, in comparison to like how we worked a couple of years ago.
So by the time this airs for our friends in China, we will have announced the Anvil Odin battlecruiser, our biggest ship that we've ever attempted to put into players' hands. a massive undertaking. It's twice the size by volume of a Javelin. You know, it's just huge. I say this because this next question is right to the efficacy of a ship like that. Currently, it is difficult for pilots and gunners to coordinate effectively. Pilots have a hard time knowing what their gunners are targeting and what firing arcs are available. Gunners also struggle to relay continuous targeting for sustained attacks on a single vessel. Can this be made better?
So there are different endeavors we have around that. So there's one big that is more like globally for the game itself, which is all the social work that is planned to be improved. Because I think we talked even about that, was it last SCL, where it's like, yeah, for an MMO, our social aspects can require some improvements.
Yes, the social teams that Benoit's team is working on will be essential to a huge part of this.
So that will also help a lot with communication on your same ship. So the voice over IP is always a topic that, like, if it works really well, it can be really good, especially on communication in close proximity on the ship. So that should help. But there are also like issues that we are aware of, and they sadly didn't get prioritized yet. But because of all the content that we now have targeted to multi-crew purposes, multi-group purposes, like the sharing of markers and helping at least communicating where to aim at, these are definitely something that we have on the list. There's also like all the marker improvements that have been discussed at this point for 2 years. That we are still working on. Also, like as with a lot of things, right? There's always a clash of priorities. There's always someone coming into the room and saying, like, no, this is the highest priority now. So we have to shuffle things around a lot. But it doesn't mean it is forgotten. It is at this point just not today. It's maybe tomorrow. And especially the marker work, I think, will help the most. Making it easier again to share markers, share targets, having even a better visuals of this is the target that is supposed to be the target.
And gives, again, someone a role on that ship to be the person.
Yeah.
Do this.
Absolutely essential for these capital ships, the Idris, the Javelin stuff. We've seen these images of the map table and stuff. You know, having there be a role that is, all right, that's our new target. Being able to click it and for that to go to every turret, gunner, like, this is your target. When this guy comes in front of you, that's who you're doing. It's absolutely essential. There are, for many people, and I'm going to include myself. People always ask, like, what kind of Star Citizen are you? Like, from the moment I learned about the project, I have always wanted to be the capital ship guy. I want to be the guy. I suck at flying, and I suck at shooting and all that stuff. But give me an overview of something, and I can make good decisions that'll help. Like that's where my strong part is. So that role that we're talking about here, being there at the desk and going, okay, it's gunners 1 through 6, your target's this. Gunners 7 through 12, your ship is this, and stuff like that is my dream, which is why something like the Odin battlecruiser is very exciting to me. I just have to live long enough to.
Yeah, especially for that, we even have like very, very clear long-term goals.
Yeah.
I think we briefly mentioned it in our Road to 1.0 discussion from Rich Tyra, where
it's in the Road 1.0 stuff.
Yeah, so where we have this fleet management as an opportunity for you to do tactical decisions on your ship.
Yeah, and the social tools and stuff. It also just takes forever trying to crew these things. Right now we've got the Idris out there, but finding enough people and getting your positions and stuff.
But even on that, we have like some like improvements already in the works. That
like what?
The teleport. I don't know if we should talk about that though.
This is the show to talk about it, my friend.
So we have right now. It's not signed off yet. So they are like, because we have to fit this work into the theme of Star Citizen, and it's like, if I phrase it now the way that I will phrase it, you understand why it is really hard to put it into the framing of what we sell as Star Citizen. It's the teleport to party leader. where we want to allow players to, in certain situations, be able to quick travel to your party group or your party hangar, and then be able to go on a mission. So we want to reduce the time for you to gather dramatically with this feature. But it's a bit challenging.
Yeah, it's challenging. At first glance, it seems against the ethos of Star
Correct.
Citizen. So, and that's why he's saying it's not a signed-off feature. It's a. You've heard me say it. We have the same conversations here that you guys have out there, just 3 months earlier, and probably just as contentious, to be honest. But we have to explore those things, even if we never do it, even if a teleport feature never comes into Star Citizen, and it may not. Guys, we still have to discuss it.
Yeah.
We have to discuss it. We have to explore it. We have to build a prototype. We have to try it. We have to try anything that can make the process of getting into the game and playing the game more enjoyable, more effective, has to be considered. That has to be a major priority, especially as we go towards 1.0. As you go towards 1.0, that priority becomes more and more important. Making the game accessible, making it possible for people to get in and do the things that they want to do. So there may be some things here and there that are like, well, that makes it less like a space sim. Sure, but it makes it more like a fun game that more people can play. So
it's one of the lots of people complain about lots of things, but one of the common ones is just the time it takes for you and your friends to go do something in Star Citizen. And we share that pain as well. So not everyone has 2 or 3 hours to play the game. Some people might only have an hour. You don't want to spend half an hour, 45 minutes of that time getting everyone together. Some people do. Not everyone does. And then spend 15 minutes quantum traveling somewhere.
Yeah.
what do you want to say, Torsten?
It's a bit more than half an hour.
He's being kind. We recognize some of the challenges, and I think if anything can always be taken away from these shows, it's an acknowledgement that we recognize those challenges and that those conversations that happen out there are happening here, and that the people here are doing their best to reduce those things and make them better. I mean, I was just in a meeting, gosh, last week with Ian and Aaron and Sandy talking about the tutorial, what we can do to improve that, because you never rest. Yes, we have to make new stuff. We have to make new stuff. New things to do, absolutely. But we also cannot forget that this needs to be a playable and enjoyable experience through and through. And there are quality of life fixes. There are older systems that can be updated, that need to be updated to help us. And then there are interesting ideas that at least have to be explored, like the teleport to party leader and stuff.
And maybe it's positive me speaking now, but I think we have a good idea of how we can make it fit for Star Citizen. And I think you will still, like, the way that is being discussed is you will have advantages still if you do the travel by yourself, but we are very, very aware that not everyone has 3 hours for a gameplay session. So we want to tailor to those, and happy to talk about it once we are signed off on that, but
fair enough. Fair enough. Many key career scenarios still lack corresponding ship types. Careers. Okay. So, are there plans to fill these gaps?
Yes. I mean, it's a very short answer. We've talked before about we have a huge matrix of size, class, manufacturers, and we want there to be options in every one. We don't want there to be a singular, like, if you want to do, let me check, size and role, this is the only ship for that. We want there to be a pool of ships to pick from. So even though we have gaps in some areas that we will fill, even ones that are filled, we will still expand it. So I don't know, let's pick heavy salvage. That's the Reclaimer at the moment. The Reclaimer is not going to be the only ship ever that fits that category. If you don't like Aegis, what are you going to do? Do you want something maybe RSI or Argo? They do the same job, but people are very attached to that manufacturer aesthetic and lore.
You gotta look cool.
You got to look cool doing spaceship stuff.
You gotta feel good about your spaceship.
Like you have very polarizing fan bases for manufacturers, like a Drake ship and an Origin ship that are doing the same role. Under the skin of it, are probably doing that role identically, but how you visually perceive them is two very different experiences.
Now that's for careers and gameplay that exist, but I think the question was actually sidestepping to careers and gameplay that doesn't exist. There are ships out there, waiting to be developed that don't have the corresponding gameplay features or something like we'll just say the Banu Merchantman right now, because there actually is not a Banu Merchantman question in this thing.
Very surprising.
You guys picked the questions. I didn't pick the questions, but there isn't a Banu Merchantman. But we know that the Merchantman needs things like the shop, like player-owned shops. Again, you have to be able to set up your own shop and stuff. Otherwise, what's the point of having a giant merchant ship that you can't merch through? So ships like that are held up less by the tremendous art time, although it is a tremendous amount of art time, and that is a holdup, let's be real, but also by the gameplay requirements. I don't remember where I was going with this. It's hard. I think the question was more asking, what about these gameplay roles that still aren't developed yet? Is there anything any hope you can give us for the future? Is without giving dates, stuff like is there an outstanding gameplay role that has a higher priority than others that might come sooner before others, maybe?
Actually, there's, right, for crafting, we have one element that we have been talking about that it is still missing. I think even in the last episode we were talking about refineries. And that definitely is one that is very high on our list, also because we sold the Expanse. And
there are other ships that have refineries built in.
Yeah, so there's the Starfarer that has a refinery on it, and it, like the benefit of us working on it opens up a lot of things, right? So there's also, like we talked about base building already. So us working on refinery not only finishes or adds another very important element to crafting, it also opens up for ships to be developed with that, and base building allowing us to have refineries at those, and then the station refineries also get more depth.
And it's sort of a lot of the ship gameplay loops that we don't have at the moment also tie into base building. We'll go back to the Merchantman example. Needs player-based shops. You need that for base building as well. So you would have I guess a module, but I can't remember what the correct phrase for the individual building archetypes is. There would be a player shop one, and that will work the same way the shops would work in the ship. So you do one, you get both, and it's the same for a refinery. You have a refinery on a ship, you have a refinery module on your base. Ground extraction in a ship, ground extraction at your base. They sort of build from each other and add maybe I don't want a ship to do this. Maybe I just want to have a base set up to do all these things. You're not forced one way or the other, you have multiple options.
And especially with all these features, right? So refinery is definitely very high on top of our list of priorities that we work through. Like the shops is also because we see the interest also with crafting, that there's this high interest on allowing players to comfortably trade.
The player trading is
the resources. So that is also quite high on our priority list. There are things that are now impacted by the feature work that we have been doing and what we observe in the community, where the urges are higher or lower. And the benefit of us being a bit agile in these situations, we can adjust some of our priorities. We still have a plan for until 1.0, what we have to reach. But within that plan, we can shuffle things around a bit at least, and priorities one thing over the other. But also the repair gameplay, now with all the engineering gameplay work and so on and so forth. Right now it is very exclusive to the hand tool. Now with 4.8 we have the in-hangar repair for the capital ships, so that's also a small addition already. So we now have that as a gameplay feature for ships. But there's also the dedicated repair ships. I personally try to avoid as good as possible, and John and Rich can confirm in the vehicle leadership meetings. I try to avoid that because like we have some plans, and I really would like to invest some time into that. But right now it's like with all the, like I really would like to finish the crafting stuff first before we tackle into that. But that is me saying that. That doesn't mean that like at some point someone says, no, we now need a repair ship, and then I have to shuffle things around.
Torsten always tries to avoid all the repair questions I give him, but if we talk science module for the Endeavour as research,
I still want to strike a deal with no one checks what I will do about that science module, and I can go free. That is a deal that I still want to do. No, everyone disagrees. Everyone is afraid.
That's the sound of 1,000 people melting 1,000 Endeavors right now.
Yeah. Like I really want.
he really does want to.
I do want it, yes. But
Before we get off refining, so obviously you've got mining and you've got salvage and you've got crafting here. Is refining another thing at that level, or is it like a sub-level that just kind of goes across everything?
so if you mean it, if it is a full profession, we treat it as a full profession.
Okay.
So it has the depth as crafting has. Yeah.
Well, okay. So there will be people like I'm going to spend today refining, and I'm going to go, and those are going to be gameplay and all the things you need to do.
There should be a reason for you having a dedicated refining ship in comparison. So
Cool.
yeah.
All right. Are suit lockers, just leave it there, suit lockers. Are suit lockers in ships getting any closer to becoming a thing, especially with the upcoming feature of flight suits being necessary to be able to handle more G-forces?
Yes, so from a vehicle content side, we have started the work to make sure they are all up to spec in our ships. So we have the prototype for what will hopefully be the initial rollout of functional suit lockers. Obviously we have suit lockers in all of our ships, but they're just, I think most people use them as temporary jail cells for people at the moment. But again, I don't want to speak on behalf of the feature team doing the work, but we have got our templates there, and we're going through all the ships and checking that the volumes are correct and you can interact with them in a quick and clean manner, because we don't want it to be you go to your suit locker, press button on the door, world's slowest animation of a door opening, you interact, swap your equipment, and it goes back up again. So there's a few ships where the doors need changing or just removing. And hopefully in the initial release of that, which I'm not going to give a date for, there will be a pretty comprehensive selection of ships supported. Not every ship has suit lockers. Not every ship is going to get suit lockers. So it's sort of if your ship has suit lockers now, it's going to support it, hopefully. If you are in a ship that doesn't have any anywhere, there is probably a reason it didn't have that, and we don't particularly want that level of gameplay there with that ship.
It's the whole, not every ship is supposed to do everything.
Yeah.
There's supposed to be choices.
Yes.
There's supposed to be sometimes some hard choices. That's intentional.
Yeah.
Game design. Speaking of hard choices, will the Caterpillar ever be given the ability to have detachable modules and ability to be outfitted for different scenarios like it advertises on the website? Or will we be looking at a Mark II version in the future?
Again, speaking from my point of view, I don't want to Mark II the Caterpillar. I want to pretty much fully redo it to its current state, not as a Mark II, and give it the modularity. So we've recently been working on the Caterpillar in a very limited scope to support the command module feature, and that sort of highlighted just how old that asset is. Again, like you said, every ship we do, we learn from. Yeah. So going back to something that at this point is probably about 10 years old was quite an experience for some of the artists who worked on it. And yes, we still want to do modules. The Caterpillar, as you know it and love it, will look broadly the same when we do that, but expect it to be brought up internally to the current standard that you see in the Ironclad.
You want to talk about any of the modules you're considering?
We never officially disclosed any, I believe, but
broadside.
but
Broadside.
there will obviously be a cargo one.
I don't give a crap about a broadside module.
I'm sure there will be a combat one.
Broadside. I want cannons, the doors open, cannons on
Roll
either
the
side.
cannons out.
I want broad, or if it's got to be on one side, and then we got to turn around like an old sailing ship, like to do the other side. Broadside cannons.
I'd love to do broadside cannons.
I heard scientific module.
You heard it here. John Crew commits to doing broadside module for Caterpillar. He committed to it.
Yeah.
Him wanting to do it is the same as Money in the Bank.
Other modules will be available.
So here's a good follow-up question. What criteria does a ship need to meet before being selected for a rework or a Mark II?
Okay, multiple layers to that. So obviously, it needs to sort of have reached a point where it just isn't fulfilling its role in the game. And we'll use the Aurora Mark I as the example here, because that had both a gold standard and a Mark II. So the Aurora, one of the first 5 ships in the game, it had changes quite a long time ago, but Star Citizen now as a game compared to where it was, say, 5 years ago is very different. The missions are different, the gameplay is different, and what we wanted to do with that ship just couldn't be done with what the Mark I was without fundamentally changing it. So at that point, we decided, let's upgrade the Mark I to current methodologies of how we build ships, make it look really good, give it as much as we physically can in the space we have available. That's gold standard. You can play the game with it now. You can competently do things. You can't do everything. And again, it's a starship. You don't want it. Not all ships should be able to do everything. It gives you a great taste of the game. Mark II, same ethos, current styling visuals. So Mark IIs are for where the Mark I is fine, but we want to radically change the visuals primarily of a ship. Mark I Hornet to Mark II Hornet, both medium fighters, both have pretty terrifying gun loadouts, visually very different. Aurora's the same, very visually different. As to how and when, primarily that's a resources point of view. There's only so many people that work on ships. They can't do everything all at the same time. We have to pick and choose. We're doing the Kraken at the moment. That's a big investment of time of people. If we weren't doing that, we could do a lot more smaller things. So again, at the director and executive level, we're deciding almost like a year in advance where we spend our tokens to develop things. So we have to hit that criteria of there's a valid need for it. Do we have the staff available to do it? And also, is it sort of something that the community wants? Not to dismiss some ships over other ones, there's more value to things like the Aurora and the Hornet that have been here a long time, right, getting a gold standard and a Mark II than a more modern ship.
Yeah, you say most of the 2027 ship schedule is already set, and so that's how far ahead of time many of these decisions are made. Sometimes we can fudge a little bit.
Yeah,
here
we try very hard.
Like
when we start a ship, we don't stop it because it's
try.
We try. There are occasions.
Banu Merchant.
We try, but it can be very disruptive internally for like stopping. Like, are we releasing this? Or are we not releasing this? Are we stopping? Are we starting? So once we start something, we try and see it through all the way to the end. And some of these ships can be 6, 12, 18 months for development. So I could say here today, we're gonna do X ship. You might not hear about that for another year or so.
All right. Please improve Gamepad support for Star Citizen. The current PlayStation controller key bindings are completely non-functional, and Xbox controller key bindings and curve settings also have significant problems. The controller configuration and overall Gamepad compatibility needs to be completely reworked. Now, this is one of those things, I remember we did the holiday live stream, not that one, a different one
about
in 2015, whatnot, where Chris played the game live, and he played on a Gamepad. You played Star Citizen, on a gamepad. I play Baldur's Gate 3, whatnot. I play it on PC. I still prefer to play it on a gamepad, even when I'm playing on PC. It's, for some people, it is just the preferred control scheme. What, if anything, are we doing to support gamepad?
So there, again, for Squadron, because like you say, tons of people play PC games with controllers, and I do it myself personally, is that I connect my DualShock controllers up to my PC so I can play it, and then when I go to my PS5, I'm not having to muscle memory relearn everything. So there's been a lot of work on the Squadron side to improve that will come back to Star Citizen. Again, it's not just why doesn't someone just copy the file from here to here and make it work? The flight systems are different, the hints are different. It's a very different tailored experience. It won't just like work out the box. So it does need some fine tuning. Again, the flight model is different in Squadron to where it is right now in Star Citizen. The quantum experience is different for where it is right now in Star Citizen. So you can't just copy it over. But a lot of work has been done to make that experience be better, and for a whole range of other peripherals. It's not just the big ones. It's just for...
If you can say one thing, is like Star Citizen is very supportive on all the different
Compared to
peripherals
a
that
lot of
exist.
others. Yeah.
I think as long as Chris is a champion, of course, but I really it's Benoit. As long as Benoit is here, this man, I've never met anybody that's more engaged by peripherals and any piece of interactive tech, whether it's Tobii or whether it's VR or whatever, it's D-Box and whatnot. It's whatever we can do to allow people to play this game the way that they want to play is going to be a priority from our technical teams and stuff like that. So, and that includes gamepads, but not at the exclusion of full sim rigs and stuff. We want to, maybe we're silly, but we want to do it all, and we believe we can. So, all right, Torsten.
What?
Now, I want to be clear that I'm just reading the question here. This isn't...
Okay.
The existing armor mechanics are fundamentally ill-suited for future gameplay. No matter how the numbers are tuned, armor will never behave realistically in actual combat. It amounts to nothing more than a single hit point bar. Armor should be diversified, for example, providing immunity against ballistic weapons size 4 and below, while energy weapons size 2 and above could deal heavy damage to armor. Thank you for listening to my ideas. No, he didn't say that. I added that. What are your plans?
So, so some of the stated ideas in that statement should already be true. So energy weapons are more efficient against armors in comparison to ballistic weapons. Maybe the difference is not that distinctive, so that's something that we have been working on for the 4.8 release. There are some changes coming in for the 4.8 release, as I think we already stated at the beginning of this show, that hopefully fixes some of the major concerns. For example, a very prominent one that just popped into my head is a Scorpius cannot damage a Scorpius. So Scorpius fighting Scorpius is an infinite fight, except using missiles. But so the armor system that we put in is as much effort as we put into it and make it right. It is justice, and just is even the wrong word. It's a stopgap filler for Maelstrom. Maelstrom is the system we always wanted to achieve. We have been advertising Maelstrom for ages at this point as the real physicalized materials that impact, or like we go for a full physical damage model rather than a health bar model. So everyone that dislikes health bars, not a thing anymore with Maelstrom. But as long as we are not at that point yet, we at least want to see how the game feels once we get like the full experience of Maelstrom. And one of that feel is the armor. The armor right now is a very binary system. I do agree. It is by intent though, because we wanted to have this clear distinction between certain projectiles will just ricochet off of your armor. And sure, there are things that we have been even discussing in our, like I've been mentioning it a lot, but this is the topic we are talking about in our vehicle leadership group. As with all the other things, we don't want to overdo with changes, right? So for 4.8, we want to iterate over what we got. And the iteration is basically fixing all the issues there with the inconsistency between certain fighters not damaging each other, certain weapons not being clear enough as an advantage over the others. But overall, I think at least what this statement said is like, I feel comfortable in saying at least the majority of that statement we will have in a better state in 4.8. They are just things that we cannot do with the armor system that we have right now. Like I've seen, like people reached out to me with a lot of suggestions. They are good suggestions. I don't disagree, but that means we need to invest more time into that. We need to derail some other feature work that we are doing. So there's a lot of considerations, and I think what we have right now is something we can build on, we can improve, and
we didn't too much wasted work while
Correct.
you're waiting for Maelstrom.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah, that's the big topic. We cannot.
You know, every minute you put into this is work that has to be replaced when Maelstrom comes in. So not every minute, but
Yeah,
there's going to be some calculus here.
At least we try to be smart about some decisions that we take now, so we don't have to.
So it's always the problem. I mean, John, you and I have done enough of these shows where it's like we would love to do that, but we know we'd have to replace that afterwards. So rather than do work that you know you have to throw out, let's work on things that we know actually have a chance at staying and continuing. And I was surprised when I saw the armor stuff go in, because I knew, well, I thought we were doing Maelstrom and stuff. But again, it's like there are experiences that can be tested now. There's data that can be gathered now by doing this work with armor today while you're waiting for Maelstrom. Like I said, you wanted to test out how this feels and that feels. You can get that feedback now without having to wait for Maelstrom, and then maybe it would affect certain things with
Yeah, I can already say that some of the observations and some of the feedback that we got definitely ended up on our notes list for Maelstrom once it comes to the PU. So some things that we see that are where the armor system is already a direct copy of how Maelstrom works, but then we notice, okay, we have to adjust those. So we already have notes for Maelstrom to be adjusted exactly the way that we are adjusting the armor system. So it helps us in the long run. So we have to spend less time in iterating over the Maelstrom system because we are already doing that in a different system, but it's the same.
Yeah. And for those who might take this like, well, if that's how it was, then this must not mean very good for Squadron. Again, single player, curated experience, massively multiplayer online, you know, space game. The distinctions are night and day. It can work wonderfully for the curated experience that we're building there, and just not here, which is where all the additional work comes from. Now that PDCs, point defense cannons, or point defense turrets, and we tried to call them PDTs, but it's hard to rebrand something. Now that PDTs with automated combat functionality have been implemented, will the auto turret drones deployed by something like the Aegis Nautilus work in similar fashion?
So drones are a big topic for us, and that is base building. So I think we talked about that in CitizenCon. Where did we show?
A little bit.
Yeah. So no, drones are a key or an essential part for base building. And the moment that we have that tech, that opens up all the opportunities for, again, right?
So many ships.
So many ships. So it's basically, again, like from crafting, base building, into drones, into opening up for all the features that we have ships with.
Yeah,
So.
and for that very specific Nautilus turret mine example, yes, you would have the drone side of it, but also the turret on it would function how PDTs work, but there's also things we want to do to PDTs between now and then to make them better. At the moment, they're very binary, like they're powered, they do whatever they want. We want to give you the control of like, maybe don't auto-engage immediately, maybe wait for me to have confirmation, only target select things, ignore this, like don't target fighters, don't waste your ammo on fighters, only go for torpedoes, or change. Internally, they have a fixed threat order of like, do torpedoes first, then do missiles, then do ships, then do other things. And maybe you don't want that order. Maybe you want to have ships first and you don't want to have them, we want to give players that control. And when you have that on your PDTs and then on a drone and then in the Nautilus, then it's a much more compelling experience.
The moment you give me the ability to set my target priorities for my PDTs, I'm just taking something with like 15 some odd PDTs, like theaters or whatever, and I'm setting it only for people, and I'm flying over Jumptown and just being like, bye. I'm just gonna fly upside down right over Jumptown. Just be like, of course I'm not taking my Idris upside down, but you get the idea. 890 jump. It has a lot of PDTs on it, doesn't it?
Kraken full of MDTs.
Oh yeah, Kraken with the MDTs, with the MDCs on top, or yeah. Rich, anybody, ground vehicles? Like honestly,
my
I
favorite
could just see the
subject.
question. Just ground vehicles. We talk about ground vehicles almost as long as we've talked about the next version of the flight model.
Yeah.
Like,
So the two things are connected. So we wanted to complete what we think is the new flight experience first before we moved our resources onto the ground vehicles. But, well, it was like 3 years ago now, we did do a update in a very limited slot of time we had to introduce a new time model, some new suspension physics, and just generally how they behave. Now, by going this route of how the flight model behaves in terms of going for realism, but accessibility and just the thing feeling good in the game, it made the ground vehicles better, but also introduced some of the problems in the ground vehicles because we freed up the physics to react more kind of realistically, which inherently makes them look unrealistic at times because we're hitting solid objects with the bottom of the vehicle or with the suspension kind of funny, and the vehicles would do strange things. And that's just down to the fact that we've got work to do. So we've got a framework of the ground vehicles, and interesting enough, we've got a meeting very, very soon to discuss the kind of ground vehicle 1.0 plan of what we want to achieve with ground vehicles. Because as we do base building, we do combined arms, the ground vehicles are going to become even more important for the universe. So we've got a plan to improve the time model, the suspension, but just the general way that the vehicles interact with our world. It's when you hit rocks and stuff, the vehicles don't flip over and crash all the time and feel very strange. You feel like they don't have mass because the vehicles do have mass, but the force that is generated is a very hard force. It's a very kind of simple calculation of just you hit objects, force generated, force is applied to the ground vehicle. But we're going to start controlling that so it feels much more natural. And also, we're looking at converting the ground vehicles to the exact same systems that the spaceships work on as well. So they'll have an engine, power plant, and everything will work as a normal Star Citizen vehicle does as well. And this overall will have a much more kind of natural feeling ground vehicle in the end, once we get some time to work on the physics of, just how it interacts with the world. And I'm kind of excited by that, which will hopefully allow us to do more interesting gameplay and for the vehicles to kind of
actually
be
have
able
a
to do
purpose.
more. Yeah, to just be able to do more in the game and have that purpose where, so you can go take your ballista, park it somewhere and have it in the right spot that you want it so you can use it for that purpose.
Actually, we had, there was this, I forgot the name, like the big facilities we have on the ground.
Distribution centers.
Thank you. Distribution centers. Those were like our first intent of making ground vehicles more viable because we equipped those distribution centers with very effective turrets so that you should land further out. Our planet environments weren't built for that. So we had a bumpy road ride.
Yeah, one of the biggest problems the ground vehicles have are the very beautiful looking planets that we don't have nice roads on because part of it is they're not habitable or I can't think of the word. Civilized with infrastructure, so there isn't roads there. And a lot of people underestimate the scale of Star Citizen and they're bombing along in their Cyclone, which they don't realise makes like a Humvee look small, and they hit what they think is a small rock, but if you stood next to it in real life, it's 2 meters tall. So a vehicle travelling at 40 meters a second, hitting something that essentially has infinite mass in how it is in the world. In the real world, you'll just go pancake into it, but our vehicles have mass. That thing doesn't have mass. Like Rich talked about, it was changed to a more realistic model, and then we had to rapidly change it because the physical forces that were being imparted on the vehicles was just insane. So there's lots of things we've had to do to tone it down.
Yeah, it's one of those things like Star Citizens. Is it a spaceship game? Is it an FPS game? It's an Rich Tyler will tell you it's an everything game. And that's what we're attempting to do. That has to include ground vehicles. Yeah. I think ground vehicles have been sort of in this unfortunate kind of side shunt over here. They've never really found their purpose in the verse, and it's like when I saw something like Stormbreaker for the first time, like I was excited now that that a big area that doesn't allow you to fly ships in and stuff like this. I'm like, great, do something like that where you can do vehicles, and like imagine the entire patch content was ground vehicle related. You had to do the entire patch content in ground vehicles and stuff like this. And the answer I got back from creative director Ian Leyland was, we'd love to, but playing in ground vehicles right now isn't that great. So if you do an entire patch content that requires everybody to roll around in ground vehicles, you better make sure the ground vehicles are fun and actually work the way. So it's just that's another smaller dream. First dream is the big giant battlecruiser kind of thing, commanding the field. The second thing is I just love an entire content drop that is ground vehicle related. You can't bring ships.
Want them to be just as good as the ships, and that maybe to the point where you never even want a ship. You're just content with your base built location, ground vehicles, tooling around, doing all the game loops with ground vehicles.
Adding to that, even it's like, so right now it's like also not the most like convenient thing to call your ground vehicles. So that is something that we have on our list also for ages at this point, which is ground vehicles through freight elevator or nested spawning of ships with ground vehicles. So good news is we have been working on that, but I was about to say, we proved it with the Atlas, but the Atlas is not
technically a vehicle.
It's technically not a vehicle, but no, it has been on our list for quite some time. Because the moment that we allow ground vehicles to be more comfortably stored or pulled up and then being stored in your ship, I think they also will be used naturally more than what they are right now. Because right now it's, pardon my French, it's a bit of a pain.
The Atlas is not technically a vehicle. It's a very large person you crawl into.
Yes.
I said those words. I think we got time for a couple more here. Refueling, passenger transport, retail, and escort gameplay all have functionality but lack player motivation. How will you make players genuinely want to engage with these?
Good news. Refueling.
So for one of those.
At least for one of those. Now we are aware that sometimes you need extrinsic motivation to try out gameplay loops in our game, and refueling is one of the few ones that we. Like, when we released it for the first time, there were a lot of that because it's a new gameplay. People were coming up with their own goals. They organized themselves. We even had a brief moment where the fuel rats came into our game and were distributing fuel. They left again, but I think, at least I've stopped noticing them there. But anyway, derailing. So it worked for a short time. Like with all intrinsic urges you have, it's like, it's a smaller time frame rather than you get external reward. And for the next patch, there is finally some external rewards for that, because we will introduce refueling missions. So that will be all the owners of Starfarers and other refueling ships will be allowed to refuel stranded NPCs. So if an NPC ran out of fuel, they will pop up a mission, and you in your Starfarer or fuel giving ship will be able to head over there and refuel them. So there is suddenly a purpose on
You and your Starfarer or fuel-giving ship,
Or other ships.
other fuel-giving ship that might have seen a sneak peek of in the weekly newsletter last week or the week after. Well, it depends on when you're watching this. I think this episode doesn't air for the full community until the 14th or something.
Well, we have the Starfarer Gemini. I just
Yeah.
didn't want to say the Gemini.
The only time we've ever had a variant produced by a different manufacturer.
True.
Although I just saw on the website it's still listed under MISC. It's not listed under Aegis. Fix that. Like he's in charge of the website. He's not
I'll
in
go
charge
fix
of
the website.
He's not in charge of the website at all. All right, folks. That's it for the show. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. If you're the fine folks watching in Xi'an, China, thank you for taking the time to take this and localize it with subtitles for the viewers. We always like doing this show for you guys out there. And then if you're watching at home or in your car or wherever later, we hope you have found the information helpful and useful and worthwhile. For the show, I'm Jared. That was John. That's Torsten. That's Rich. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back with another show soon. I think technically it might actually be tomorrow by the time this actually airs. Calendars. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.